Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 now of Coaches Unleashed. So, this is the show where we talk about how everyday people can get life-changing results through coaching. Today is a special episode because we have Daniel Ling with us.
Hello.
Dan is one of my past clients. I worked with Dan over about a period of a year. We did 8 or 9 sessions, something around that. And we looked specifically, initially at least, it was around management, stepping into a new management role. So we thought, well, Dan's been very kind in giving us his time to come on and speak to us today and just talk about how it's helped him from the perspective of someone who's been coached. So we're really looking forward to this one. And Dan, if you can start off by just giving a 2 to 3 minute introduction about yourself.
Yep. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Beatrice. Thanks for inviting me on. As Tom says, I'm Daniel Ling. I work at the Information Lab in Ireland as a data analytics consultant. I've been with the company about 4.5 years, and in the last 18 months or so, I've taken on a management position. So for a team of initially 4 and then growing to 5 other consultants. So I'd be their line manager. In terms of coaching, yeah, I've worked with Tom as my coach over the last year or so to kind of work out my own leadership style, my own management style, to improve that, never having managed people directly before. There were some challenges along the way, but hopefully worked through those and hopefully, became a slightly better manager on the way. Personally, I'm married with 3 young children, based in Killarney in Kerry, and it's lovely and sunny here, as it always is. That's me.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for that beautiful introduction, and welcome to our show. It's a real privilege to have you and for us to be able to hear your stories and to have you, share a little bit about your transition and how you experienced coaching. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. So Dan, how did you initially approach that transition from being an individual consultant into being a manager of people?
That's a good question. I suppose I didn't take much. I didn't take a drastic kind of change approach. I let it kind of naturally occur, and I think on reflection, I would have put more of a plan into place. So from being peer to then managing people, there were certain challenges along the way. But just tried to keep it friendly, approachable, relatable. Some of the things I've learned from different managers along the way, and things I didn't like to replicate. So didn't take a huge amount of thought to it. Kind of let it happen organically.
I love that. So you're basically saying that you learned from the good ones, but also you learned from the not so good ones how you didn't want to be.
Exactly. Yeah. That really came through in one of the sessions with Tom, where I was able to kind of identify the things I didn't want, which
Yes.
I often think is, if you were only ever managed by good people, you wouldn't know what bad was, and likewise. So being able to identify from having different managers at different times, and over a kind of 10-year working period prior to the Information Lab, I've seen some good, some bad, and some downright ugly situations. So yeah, it was good to pick apart those through the coaching sessions. Yeah.
What were are any specific examples that stand out as good traits or not so good traits?
Yeah.
I think that empathy, being able to relate to people on a personal level is a key one for me. And I've seen examples where that was missing from a manager's kind of management playbook, and it felt very inhuman, and you just kind of lose the people straight away. So that was a real key one. Kind of being relatable and approachable and available as well is another thing that I think is is something I've seen and what I've tried to bring through as well.
And Dan, I have a question on this. When it comes to empathy and being relatable and approachable, what have you noticed when that is not there and when a manager is unable? What is the impact on the team and on the group of people working together?
It can become very toxic and people switch off straight away. They don't, if they feel, or in my situation, I felt that manager was completely closed off on a personal level, and therefore it shuts down any work related things. So if I can't talk to them about what's going on for me personally, or if I have an issue that's impacting work, then I'm less likely to bring work-based problems as well. So it really closes down that avenue of communication. So it can seriously impact the end result and morale, and then retention as well. I've seen people actively leave or to be looking to leave on the back of that.
Yes,
that blocker really.
And then I think also the quiet quitting when you're still there on the job, but you're just doing the minimum to get by. So you're not really fully bringing all that you are to the job, but just doing the minimum.
Yeah, and there's a huge cost between that and going the extra mile, and that kind of optimal performance where people feel engaged and empowered and listened to and cared for, and they will do more, and that difference is what that person is impacting really. That style is impacting.
And were there any specific skills or areas that you were struggling to develop as you stepped into this management role?
Yes, certainly. There are a few, and some I'm still working on. Having difficult conversations with people and moving from, as I say, that kind of peer relationship to being one of the team, to then being a slightly different role in responsible for and accountable for people's kind of work and output. Getting people to kind of buy into doing new procedures, processes, having those difficult conversations was something that initially I would kind of run from and didn't want to take part in, just for fear of getting it wrong or it being uncomfortable or whatever. There were several challenges and several still kind of ongoing. I think that's always an ongoing challenge in the workplace, conflict and difficult conversations.
And Dan, when it comes to the skill of knowing how to delegate, how did you have difficulty developing that? Is that something that comes naturally? Is that something that you do? I would be really interested to know how it is that you managed to delegate more.
It's something that traditionally I haven't been very good at. My kids will say the same as well, in terms of that I'll just barge them out the way and I'll mix that and I'll do this bit of cooking or whatever it is. But definitely through the coaching sessions, I've learned to identify that as an area of improvement, and have to really kind of rein myself in. Like when I'd be talking at a one-to-one, or it maybe with my wife or with a friend or whatever, that idea to kind of jump back in with the solution, to offer that back to them, to bite my tongue and let them kind of talk things out. Similar with delegation, I have to kind of stop myself and say, do I need to do this myself, or would it be better in the long term to pass this off, teach somebody how to do it, explain the why, not just the what, but the how. Why are we doing it this way? Why do I want you to do this task? Get the greater buy-in. Takes a bit more time up front, but then if over the long term, when somebody's then doing that task for themselves repeatedly and it doesn't keep kind of getting blocked by myself or somebody else, it works out a lot better, I think. So again, it's another one of those skills that I've identified I need to get better at, need to do more practice on it, but it's a work in progress, should we say.
Yeah, so I'm fascinated by delegation, because it's as you go up in the hierarchy, it's less about doing and more about helping others
Mhm.
do the doing.
Yeah.
And I find with my coaches that this is a big topic that comes up, and often at the base is fear. So fear of the others not doing it as well as they do, or even the fear that the others will do it better than they do.
Yeah.
The fear of losing control, of the others having more visibility. Oh, I'm going to become replaceable now. Or them wanting to be the hero and saving the day. Or sometimes even feelings of guilt. I'm getting others to do my work. So all of that comes up. And do any of these resonate with you?
Yes, absolutely. The control word is a big one. I think we're all control freaks at heart, and it's about our ability to let go of that and let others take that responsibility on, and empowering them to do things. I think the fear as well is a big thing. From, well, if I don't do it, then somebody else will get the credit, or if I don't do it, somebody else will do it wrong, and I'll just have to redo it anyway, so it'll take twice as much time. So I definitely relate to those two aspects. But I think Tom was very good at kind of showing me that if you enable people and bring them along, you're helping that process rather than just kind of passing it off and getting somebody else to do it. You're helping bring others up and helping upskill them and on their work journeys as well. So that's something that a very early manager of mine had, where she would say, I only hire people that are smarter than me or better than me at this. And you're kind of thinking, I'm not sure I am, and I don't really get that initially, but then after a few years you kind of think, okay, yeah, because you're kind of helping move people through and develop and grow. So yeah, it's very interesting. So
tell us about your experience coaching with Tom. Really curious to know what it's like to have Tom as a coach and how that experience was.
Initially, I wasn't sure. I kind of pre-session, I was thinking, what's this all about? What's going on? But then kind of when you start getting that freedom and that space and that reflection time to think back over 10, 12 years of previous managers that you never would do really in day-to-day life. It's too busy with the to-do list and the priorities and the project deadline, and you never think back. So it was really interesting to get that space. One session we kind of worked on time management, where I felt I was too busy to go, but then had to take the time to get better at planning the time. So it really was interesting. Yeah, it's about that freedom, that space, that kind of reflective, somebody not kind of jumping in with the solution and saying, Dan, you should just do this and then your problem solved. I really like that idea. And it can be a little bit challenging or confusing at first when there is no response or there is no answer. You're like, well, just tell me, just, tell me what to do. What should I do about this? What should I say to this person? But I suppose over the sessions, as we built up that kind of shared understanding, it was really beneficial. Yeah.
You mentioned difficult conversations quite a lot earlier, Dan. How did coaching help you with that specifically?
Yeah, I think there's that kind of irrational fear around going into a difficult conversation of, well, I'm going to make the person upset, or they're going to start screaming at me, or it's going to go really badly and I'm going to say something I shouldn't, or many other different things. And I suppose it's through coaching, you're able to kind of pick that apart and say, well, is it that bad? And what's actually going to happen? And what's the reality? And that kind of grow mechanism from the the goal and the reality, and you focus on what's actually going on. You kind of take away those take away that kind of snowballing effect in your mind of, well, if I say this, then they'll say that, and then this will happen, and then you're 3 weeks down the line and everything's happened, where in reality you have to have a 5-minute conversation. It might not be the most pleasant topic in the world, but it has to be done for work purposes. So I think, again, just getting that space to kind of pick apart what those fears are, how real they are, the actual rationale behind what's going on, I think was really beneficial, and helped in a good, a good couple of concrete examples where a year prior I would have kind of dreaded the conversation, but I went in kind of prepared, and it went as well as expected, and there wasn't that kind of overthinking or overcritical reflection and kind of follow up and dwelling on the conversation. It was prepared, acted, done, moved on, and seemed to go as well as it could have done. So.
So Dan, you mentioned before that at the beginning of the coaching journey, you were a bit, like, well, I wonder what this is. Is that because you were sponsored by somebody else to do coaching, and it wasn't you who actually looked for it, or you looked for it, but you were still a little bit weary of it? How did that go? I
think it was just the unknown of it, really. Having never taken part in it. I kind of done a couple of therapy sessions in other situations, but never in the workplace, never had that opportunity and that time given or that resource allocated to specifically coaching. So it was just, well, I don't know what this is, so I don't know how it's going to work. We had done an initial look at coaching as part of a kind of leadership development program, and I had read a book on it on the back of that, and found that very useful for my own personal life of, asking my wife questions and then just shutting up and listening. So I had kind of dipped my toe into it, but yeah, I suppose it's the great unknown, really.
And I'm wondering, how did the Tom, are you going to say something?
No, go ahead, Beatrice.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how did Tom's coaching help you to develop your own sense of style in becoming the manager that you would want to be?
I think, as we touched upon earlier, it was that space and that reflective approach to look at my past history of being managed and to identify the traits from managers that I liked, that I'd identified I could relate to, and really trying to piece those together of how I would like to be treated and then to treat people. I had kind of looked at them in isolated incidents of, I didn't like him, or that was great, I wish there was more of that, or she was great but could have done this differently, and kind of pulling those together, and until you stop and think back and reflect on, they're just kind of separate incidents. 12 years ago, 6 years ago, last week he said this, and it was very much separate, but that space and freedom to pull those down, to make some scribbled notes of, I like this, I didn't like that, and then to try things out, to approach different people in different ways, I think was another one as well.
Yeah, so taking all the bits, he helped you to, sounds like Tom helped you to put together actually what it is that you liked and wanted to become, and what you wanted to let go of and not replicate.
Yeah, it was kind of the a good kind of reverse Frankenstein type, bit of this, bit of that, kind of cherry picking the good bits and leaving out the bad stuff, hopefully. Not sure my team would agree all the time.
Maybe we should have his team come on the next
yeah, I think so.
on the next episode.
So yeah, I'll get the checks ready first.
Dan, were there any key kind of lessons or key moments that you can remember, specific sessions where you had any breakthrough moments?
I think that value framework we did, where we kind of identified what was important and then stripped away everything else, and you kind of boil down to what it is really important. Again, it's stuff you would be aware of, but would probably never focus on or bring together at any given point, because we're all too busy. We're too focused on the to-do list, as I said, the project deadline, the holiday plans, the dog walk, the this, the that, the other. We don't take the time to reflect. So I think really kind of focusing down and understanding what it is that actually matters. If you could take everything away, what would be the things that you would really focus on? I think that was really valuable, and really, really good session.
So it sounds like specific tools were used as well to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a core values exercise that I do. I do it with all my clients. That's helping them really identify what the core values are for them, and helps you frame decisions for the rest of your life beyond the sessions that we do together as well. So, yeah. Have those values stayed true to you since coaching, Dan?
I'd like to think so. Yeah, I think it's probably a recurring exercise to do to reevaluate as we go through through different stages in life. But yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah. But again, it's just really handy to nail those down and get clarity on what they are, because we often get confused by, well, if I get this promotion, then I'll be happy, and then that will matter. And then in reality, there's a few kind of key underlying things that really matter, and the rest is kind of noise along the way.
And would you be willing to share your core values with us, Daniel? Or some of them?
No. Yes, of course. Yeah, I suppose that empathy, the kind of the family, as I say, I'm married with 3 kids and a dog, so that really runs kind of true to me. That's my really key. I suppose helping others and being available and being of service to others is another key one. So trying to, Tom and I discussed, in one session about my lack of any interest in kind of material things or whatever it is. And I suppose, yeah, what being available and helpful to others is something that actually, something that brings me a lot of satisfaction and yeah, now I'm not always that way inclined. Sometimes I'm very selfish and very pig-headed, as my wife will tell you. It's my way or the highway, or my thing comes first, in terms of the garden projects or whatever it is. But I'd like to try and stick to those where possible, and particularly at work as well, where we're kind of in that focused environment and people can feel like they're under pressure, but I'd like to think they know I'm there if they need anything in a crisis or what have you.
So reliability, it sounds like reliability is
that'd be a key one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've seen that, where people kind of come in hot and cold, and sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not, and that can be quite not distressing, but it leaves you wondering, where do I go, what do I do? Whereas if you're kind of consistently available, I think that's reassuring for people, particularly through change. As team members have different managers or they go into different projects, it can be very handy to have that kind of person there they can call upon for help and ideas and guidance and things. So yeah.
And Dan, if you were to look back over this 18-month journey that you've been on as a new manager and a developing manager, what advice would you give to any aspiring managers who are considering coaching as part of their growth?
I would say do it sooner rather than later. I think that exercise of the kind of key core values, and I suppose being in a management position, you will have a level of experience from being managed with others, to pick out those good bits and bad bits, and to define your own style through that, I think would be the two bits of advice I would give to somebody starting out, because you can quickly fall into a trap, I think, of just doing the things you think you need to do and then feeling unsure of why you're doing them. Whereas I think if you identify how you want to be and to come across through those sessions, I think were really beneficial. Yeah, I think that would be kind of the key advice. Yeah, and I think to revisit it as well on a periodic basis would be very helpful as well, to just to evaluate, because it's not a one and done type, fix me now and I'm good for another 30 years till retirement type thing. I think it's stuff will come up, people move jobs, different team members come in, different challenges, different, economic climate, whatever it may be. Life is kind of constantly in flux. So
yeah, so it sounds like it really helped you to accelerate the process as well, and to just help you also expose your blind spots that you wouldn't have necessarily got to by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just kind of talking things through that you think you know the answer to, or you think you're aware of, and then kind of the sort of prompts or the probing questions from the coaches is kind of, it shines a light on things that, oh, actually, yeah, I didn't think of that, and yeah, it's very helpful.
Great.
Brilliant. Beatrice, anything else from you, or any other questions you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I wish, it's just, I'm a curious person, so I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall listening to you, Coach Daniel. That's not always possible, but this is the next best thing. So Daniel, thank you so much.
No worries
for sharing,
at all. Thank you.
For sharing this with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Anything else you'd like to add before we close off?
No, just thanks again for inviting me. I was a little bit nervous to start with, but you've both very you've a knack of putting people at ease and letting them waffle on as I like to do. So thank you. It's
like the coaches.
Exactly. Exactly.
Tom, we should definitely invite his team and maybe his wife as well. It was a joke. It was a joke. No worries.
No, thank you.
All right.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye to our viewers and our listeners. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.